Do you ever get stuck feeling helpless, not speaking up, not acting, in a way, not fully living? Then you might be playing out the bystander role in your life. And if we haven't met before, hi, I'm Valentina Manini. I am a certified internal family systems practitioner, and I have a master's degree in leading change in both individuals and organizations. I work in private practice in Zurich, Switzerland, even though originally I'm Italian, as my accent might suggest, and I live and breathe IFS both personally and professionally. Let's get back to how this feels like and tell me if this rings a bell. You're stuck in the bystander role if you witness something unsettling but cannot speak up, as if your voice is literally trapped in a knot in your throat. You might feel as a bystander of your life, somehow stuck at the sidelines watching it all flow and not taking action, not truly living it. And I know very well how that feels like because I've been trapped in that place for a good 2 decades of my life. And it took a hell lot of an effort to get out of it. It's really a feeling of being trapped in a place where you can barely move, as if holding your breath, waiting for something to happen, waiting for things to go wrong, worrying, ruminating, and trying really, really hard to figure it out. So I guess you get the picture. And if that's you, then you might be living stuck in the bystander role. Bowen talks extensively about the role of the bystander in the family system and what it entails. What I've experienced in my IFS work and in the PCIP model in a different way is the role of the helpless witness, the one who sees but cannot act, which is the quintessence of childhood trauma. You get to witness your own emotional or physical abuse and you cannot do anything about it. And there is a knowing deep down that it's not right, that it is not fair. There are parts of you that, while you experience that overwhelm, that are enraged and wish to strike back, that want to run away and feel ashamed and in pain because they could not help. They could not get out of it. They could not strike back or run away. They had to witness it all and take it all in and finding a way to live with it. As chances are that anger was not welcome and as that way out was not a possibility, because when is it ever for a child a possibility? The system collapses into helplessness, into that learned state of taking in and not being able to stop it. There is a sad and yet very insightful experiment made on intergenerational learned helplessness with actually a variety of poor little creatures. The one I remember is about fleas in a jar. The jar is closed and so the fleas keep trying to jump out of it and keep hitting their heads on the lid. And eventually they learn that if they jump too high, they will hit the lid. But what about the next generation? What if they're placed this time in a jar without the lid? What happens then? They will not jump as high as the lid because they've learned that they would hit their heads and therefore they jump a little lower. And as they jump a little lower, they cannot free themselves. They keep living as the lid was still there. A lead that they never experienced beforehand, a lead that they just learned about from the previous generation. And this is what learned helplessness is like. Learned helplessness is this jar we lived in. We experienced the lead, and it was an overwhelming, terrifying, painful lead or parent. And we did everything we could to adapt and to survive. And as it very naturally happens, we stop checking whether the lead or the parent is still there. Often enough, this means our parts stop checking whether or not we are still living with our parents or not. They stop checking whether we are still living in the same environment as we did. They stop checking whether we are still in the same amount of emotional pain or distress or fear that we lived in when we were children, or later on in whatever abusive experience we ended up in. And so the system organizes itself in a specific way. There are many different parts that take over different jobs to make sure that we can survive and adapt to that situation. And I would like to go a little bit into each one of them so that maybe you recognize them in yourself as I describe their role in the system. The parts holding emotions that are not welcome are exiled. Anger being the most common one. Anger is rarely welcomed. Parts that would hold boundaries are not really developed. Like, for example, speaking up. When speaking up is not allowed in our family of origin, when it's not allowed by our caregivers, then it's just not developed. And the managerial part that distances from emotions and numbs the system takes over, originating that feeling of living as a bystander of life. Parts that numb are often firefighters, but there are parts that use it as a strategy all the time to just keep us distant enough from our emotions, because when we were children, it was just too overwhelming and too often. And so it becomes a strategy that instead of coming in with pain comes up, it's just there all the time. The child that was being yelled at or abused often has the belief that there must be something really wrong with it, and it is also exiled and trapped in the past. And the part that holds all the helplessness and the hopelessness and sometimes overwhelms the system with despair is very present. It might not be felt at all times, but it emerges from time to time, completely overwhelming the system. Until, of course, a firefighter comes in to soothe through drinking, eating, other substances. It doesn't really matter as long as it gets the job done. And working with these parts can be tough. Often they are not just resistant to hope, they're actively fighting against it. It feels safer to not have hope at all than to risk hoping and then losing that hope again and again and again. And that's something that I have experienced very deeply in my system. In a strange way, feeling hopeless brings in a sense of safety and familiarity, because it is in a way predictable, it is stable, it is indeed better to keep hope tucked away, hidden, than to open up to it and risk the crush of disappointment if it doesn't work out. And it is therefore fundamental to slowly get to know all the parts involved, and especially take the time to meet and witness the numbing part, the one distancing from emotions and life itself, and the hopelessness, holding closely the belief that it's better not to hope and not to live than risking the disappointment of losing it again. Let me know what resonated the most with you and ask your questions in the comments.